Today, we are going to be talking about who, in my opinion, are the top 10 players in the world for the second half of this year. This is partially results-based and partially based on just my opinion. A lot of results, but it kind of starts to get a little murky outside of the very top echelon. But first, I want to do 3 honorable mentions, one from each of the major scenes in the world. North America's honorable mention is going to be Mute Ace. I think Mute was just under the cusp of this. I think skill-wise, he is top 10. I just think he had a couple of bad outings. I don't really blame him for the Japan placements at all, because I mean, sometimes your body doesn't work. But Mute has been absolutely fantastic. If I was including him in the full year, maybe he would be top 10 because of the second place run at Genesis. He is obviously fantastic, but I think he's just under the consistency of the players above him. Maybe he's not. I'm not 100% sure. I think I have an argument for top 10. I just looked at the stats and I was like, maybe not quite good enough. Number 2 of the honorable mentions is going to be Siski from Europe. I think Siski is definitely the second best player in Europe as of right now, behind Glutonny, because Glutonny went crazy this season. But Siski is just really consistent. I feel like Siski always does well. He did a mediocre port priority running into one of his worst matchups in Eero and Beast Mode Paul. I think he also lost to Dabuzz in winners, which what are you gonna do? But Siski, in my opinion, is incredibly strong. He's been doing really well recently. He did really well at UFA, and he's done well at a lot of tournaments. Again, he's just under the cusp of these players. And again, maybe that's partially because he can't travel that often to the States because it's expensive. And obviously he's not spamming tournaments in Japan because that's also expensive. But Siski has been doing absolutely fantastically. And third honorable mention is going to be Ashimo, the Ryu player from Japan. He is obviously insanely good. For a long time in Japan, he was consistently getting top 8. Literally the only reason, in my opinion, he's not top 10 is he got that 49th at the last Maisuma top, and that's, or 65th or something. He went 2-2 or something, which is quite bad relatively. Ashimo is insane, and in my opinion, one of the most slept on players in the world, but he's just so good, and I feel like people don't talk about him enough because it's Ryu and people are like, yeah, he's just gonna down tilt and nair, which true, to be fair, but he's insanely good. He's just right under the cusp of this top 10 in my opinion. So now let's get to the top 10 list. And much like when I did my top 15 videos, these are going to be in clumps. I honestly don't know how to separate these first 5 players. The bottom half of my top 10 is literally in one big clump, and I don't know who would be technically better. It is so difficult to do so. So let's talk about the first player. I kind of did it. Let's just do it alphabetically, and that will be Ken. Ken, in my opinion, has a really big sleeper season. Obviously, people are aware that he did well at Port Priority and also did well at SmashCon, but I feel like before Port Priority, people were kind of just missing Ken's name because people were focusing more on Sonix, because Sonix is the #1 Sonic in the world. But Ken, in my opinion, is ridiculous. He is so consistent. He's always doing well or losing to the best of the best players. He has wins on multiple of the top players in the world, whether it's because of, he has a good matchup against them, or just he's such a strong player. He's beat a couple of his demons like Spargo and Leo. He's beat a couple of other incredibly strong players. I mean, he also beat one of his demons in Light at Watch the Throne. He's just so good, and he's consistent at Japanese tournaments, consistent at North American tournaments. He's definitely in my top 10 right now. He's been playing ridiculous, and he is one of the people pushing Sonic to their limit, along with Wrath, who is, in my opinion, going to get up here, in the next 6 months or so. He's ridiculous, and obviously Sonix. So yeah, Ken, definitely in the top 10. Next up in this, bottom half of the top 10 in alphabetical order is Light. I think Light obviously deserves to be in top 10. He is very consistent, right? He got first at Shine, and he's only lost, his weird losses are still good losses, Web JP and Apollo Kage are 2 of his worst losses, but he's beat Spargo, he's beat Sonix, he's beat so many of the other top players in this category, and he really only loses to other very top players or niche one-off losses here and there. He's so consistent. His peaks are amazing. I mean, he's beat Spargo, he's beat Gluto, he's beat Mute Ace, I'm pretty sure. He's beat so many of these other top players. It is fantastic to watch, and obviously he's one of the most explosive players in the world. And again, top 8 at Port Priority. I think he fell short at Shine because he lost to Miya in Losers. But also everyone lost to Miya in Losers until Dabuzz there. So yeah, I mean, I feel like Light is just so good. I don't know where, if I had to put him as a ranking, I don't know where I put him in this 6 through 10 area. It's very, very difficult. Again, continuing along with alphabetical order, we're going to have Tweek. I think Tweek had a very solid season. He did very well at Terra. He got second at a super major there. He made top 8 at Watch the Throne. Did he make top 8 at Port Priority? No, I don't think he did. But he has been just really consistent overall. He's only losing to the best of the best players. He's losing to like cola and Miya and Spargo sometimes, but he's also beating Spargo sometimes. Like, he has plenty of wins in this top echelon of players to easily keep him in this top section of the players in the world. He's just so good and so consistent, and like when people are like, oh my god, Tweek did so poorly, he got like 9th or 13th, which is better than some of the people higher on this list, like way higher on this list. So yeah, I think Tweek, especially in the second half, I mean, in the first half of the year, he went absolutely insane with like, let's make big moves, and of course, the end of 2022, he was really good with like, second place at main stage, but he's been really consistent throughout the whole year. I mean, he's had a couple of not super stellar performances, but they've always been like pretty good. So yeah, Tweek absolutely deserves to be in here. Continuing on with the fourth player I want to talk about, we have Yoshidora. I think Yoshidora has been incredibly consistent. Again, he was top 10 last season in Lumi rank. I think he's kept up that consistency. He hasn't had like a first place placement in Japan, but also it's hard to do that when a cola and Miya are both there. But I mean, in Japan, he's doing incredibly well. He's consistently getting top 8s. He's a brick wall for so many players. He's so difficult to beat. He didn't do fantastically when he went overseas. I think he got like 13th at UFA. He got like 13th or 9th at something at Port Priority. Like, he didn't do like fantastically, but he's consistent enough, and he's still like, even there, losing to like Zomba or like other top players in this area, that I still want to give Yoshidora this spot. He's so good. And for the last character in this section, again, alphabetical order, which means we're talking about Zomba. I think Zomba ascended after he lost at Battle of BC. He got so mad and put up crazy numbers at Crown. He did really well. I think he won Cirque du CFL. I think he beat Light there. He also got second at Shine. Like, he's been doing amazingly consistently well. And yes, is he losing sometimes to people like Umeki? Sure, but also Umeki's like one of the best peaches in the world. Like, he's only losing to super amazing players. He's losing to like Shattuck or all of these top players, but at the same time, can definitely grab W's on players like Acola and Ken, and I think he beats Tweek and Light pretty consistently right now. So like, he's one of the people that just gives a lot of the super top North American players trouble, and then maybe will falter a little bit less. But also, he got like 5th or 4th at SmashCon, which was really dark. He beat Mars there. He also beat, I think it was Didi, or I don't remember who he beat or he beat Neo there. So like a 4th at the biggest tournament. He did really well when he went to he did like pretty well when he went to Japan. He's done just consistently well overall. And yeah, does he have a couple of weird placements? Sure, but again, kind of everyone does here. I think Zomba has been playing so well recently. And that is it with that cluster of the top 10. Next, we have, just in my opinion, the number 5 player in the world. There's no other person in this clump, and that is going to be Glutonny. I think Glutonny is really in between these two sections. I feel like he is incredibly consistent with, of course, incredible peaks. He won Terra. He's one of the only people to win a major this, like the super major this second half of the year that wasn't one of the 4 people above. I think he's literally maybe the only person, but he of course has wins on so many of these top players. I mean, he's beat Leo, he's beat Spargo, he's beat like a lot of the players that I just mentioned below, especially like in the honorable mentions as well. He's had trouble with a couple of the super top players like Acola and Miya, but he's beat Spargo. I don't remember the last time he's played Sonix. The last time I can remember is, I don't think it's right, which is Genesis, but I'm pretty sure they've played since then, and like, I feel like he's gonna get that dub sooner or later, even though that Sonic versus Wario matchup seems so difficult. But Gluto is just incredibly consistent, amazing peaks. Like, he won Rewired Fest, he won Terra, and he's got top 8 at Watch the Throne. He gets like top 8 or like wins. Basically, like, the only bad outing he had was Port Priority this season, I'm pretty sure, and I don't know what he got, but I know he lost to Beast Mode Paul, but I don't know the second player that he lost to. Yeah, Gluto is not only incredibly consistent, but of course he is incredibly, his peaks are so high, which I think definitely puts him in this top 5 area. And now we're going to be talking about the top 4 players in the world. These are ordered, in my opinion, 4, 3, 2, 1, but we can talk about them, and number 4 is going to go to Sonix. I think Sonix, I think you could argue him as number 3 as well. Honestly, you could argue him as high as you want. Winning Port Priority, doing very well at the coin box that just happened, doing well at so many majors. He won a couple of other majors that I can't remember off the top of my head. He like only loses to like the super top players, and he had a bad SmashCon, right? He got like 25th there, losing to DD and Icy Mist, but then he's just like overcoming everything. He loses to someone and then just beats them right away. He has a winning record on both Miya and acola, 2-0 on both of them, or I think Miya is like technically like he's 3-1 against them, which is crazy. I think he has a slightly losing record to Spargo this season, but he's just so good. He's incredibly consistent. He is so disciplined, and it is fantastic to watch. If you wanted to put him in number 3 above this next player, I would totally understand, and that next player is going to be his rival, Spargo. Again, similar to Sonix, Spargo does have winning records on acola and Miya. The only reason I don't put him up there is just because of the consistency of the two players above, but Spargo has been fantastic. He won Lex Moves Miami, 2nd at Gommel, 2nd at Coinbox IRL. He won Watch the Throne, which like I would have put him at number 4 if he got if Sonix beat him there. But he's just so good. He definitely, of course, had a rocky SmashCon. He got like 49 losing to Aaron and LY there, and that's like the biggest tournament of the season. So like it has to count that he did worse than all these other players there. But in my opinion, I'm not even just my opinion. He's objectively amazing. He beats so many players. He does have a couple more consistent demons. Like Mudes does very well versus him. Gluto's been doing well versus him. Although I think Spargo beat him at Watch the Throne, because again, it's hard to beat him in multiple sets in a row. It's like so challenging, which is why like Mudes winning that consistently is honestly super impressive. And then again, we'll lose to Ken sometimes. I think he also how did he do it port priority? I don't remember. He lost to Riddles and Losers, so I think he got like 17th there. So 2 not top 8s at like the 2 biggest tournaments, which means that Spargo is just going to get docked a little bit. But of course, peak Spargo is like number 1 in the world, I think. Like he's ridiculous. And now, of course, let's get into the top 2. I think number 2 is Miya. Number 1 is acola. Miya, of course, and acola have been doing incredibly well. Acola, of course, did not get top 2 at port priority, but won SmashCon, the biggest event, of course, wins a bunch of events in Japan. It was a big deal that Miya recently took his first tournament over acola at Kagedimi number 10. So even though Miya has had the upper hand in the last like 2 or 3 months against acola, I still want to give acola like he's more consistent, but Miya, of course, is incredible. Top 3 at SmashCon, top 2 at Port, top 3 at Watch the Throne. He's consistently there. He's winning every major in Japan that acola doesn't go to. He's winning some of the majors that acola does go to now. So he's just been incredibly consistent, incredibly strong. His advantage is insane. His neutral decision making is really good. His disadvantage, is really good unless your name is Sonix or Spargo, in which case you can hit it. But that's basically the only 2 people that do. So Miya, hats off. He's been playing so consistently, and he also enters like so much. He entered like 23 majors this year and only didn't top 8 at like 2 of them, which is insane. But acola had a 100% top 8 rate this year. He did not get knocked out of top 8 a single time, which is ridiculous. He's got knocked out of top 8 once ever, which is not okay. That is so ridiculous. We've of course seen losers acola last like earlier this year at Summit. We've seen him just dominate through winners like at SmashCon. We've seen him struggle recently. I mean, not recently versus Spargo, but struggle with Spargo, and then struggle recently versus Sonix. And of course, Miya has been doing well, but I think he has been doing so consistently well and just dominating the rest of the people on this list. He's like never lost to Ken. He barely loses to Yoshidora anymore. Zomba could give him some trouble. I know Zomba has one, but he's beating Light, he's beating Tweek, he's beating like everyone in Japan except for Miya. He has to be number 1. He's just so consistently good, and even though he didn't win Board Priority or Watch the Throne, that doesn't mean that his SmashCon win is erased, and that doesn't mean that all of his other major wins don't count for a lot, because it's a lot. So yeah, acola number 1, Miya number 2, Spargo number 3, Sonix number 4, Gluto number 5, and then that clump of 6 through 10 being Ken, Yoshidora, Zomba, Tweek, and Light, with 3 honorable mentions, Mude, Siski, and Ashimo. Of course, I could maybe do a top 15, but that is my top 10, in my opinion, for the last half of this year. Thank you all for watching, but do you agree or disagree? Probably disagree, because you're going to say Spargo's actually the best because he has the head-to-heads, and Sonix is also number 2, up a stock, the vibes. But I appreciate you watching. Subscribe if you want more of this type of content, and I will see you all next time. Peace.